Hey everyone, today we're here with Logan Duncan, who's a D1 at UNLV School of Dentistry. We're going to learn a little bit about his journey to dental school and his experience as a first year so far. Logan, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you guys. Pleasure is all mine.
We're super honored to have you. So can you give us a brief description of your undergraduate journey, like where you're from originally, where you went to school, and like what your major was?
Yeah, so I'm kind of from all over the place. I really went to high school. I grew up in Alabama, and then I ended up going to undergraduate at Kansas State University, majoring in animal science and industry / pre-vet option. So I really moved there because I wanted to be a veterinarian. They had a really great vet school, had a good scholarship, and so that was kind of like the initial part of my journey. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. So when did you find out you wanted to be dentistry, like making that, that switch from, being a veterinarian to being a dentist?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And you'd be surprised how many like people that are in dental school that did not start out wanting to be dentists. A lot of
Yeah.
we have finance majors. We have people who thought they wanted to do research their whole life. Obviously, most people think about med school, or if you want to be a dentist, you want to be some type of doctor. So you thought about med school, optometry, chiropractic. Just going that route. But I initially, like I said, wanted to be a veterinarian, and then ended up after spending a couple summers of shadowing in vet clinics. For me, I kind of realized that like I didn't want to euthanize animals. That was just, everybody thinks about happy puppies and kittens and like, being at the zoo with the zoo animals, but it's honestly just wasn't for me with putting animals down.
Right.
So I started to kind of branch out. I shadowed different types of like human physicians, like PAs, optometrists, everything I kind of said earlier, and obviously one of those being dentistry. I shadowed some dentists when I was living in New Orleans, and from like the first week that I went in there and shadowed, it just hit me. It was like everything I wanted to do, from like the being a physician, a provider, helping people, working with your hands, treatment planning. It just really combined, the science and healthcare all together, with the things I liked. So that's kind of how like it just hit me. It definitely wasn't my first choice. It was at the very bottom of the list, to be honest. But after a while, it just hit me. Yeah.
And so remind me again, where was that in the timeline of in like being an undergraduate?
Yeah, so I actually didn't even really start shadowing dentistry until I graduated from college. So, going into college, I always wanted to be a vet. And then it was like, yeah, sophomore year, junior year, I ended up shadowing during those summers.
Okay.
And those summers was where I realized I didn't want to be a veterinarian anymore. So I just actually was kind of like, look, I'm just going to take some gap years and try to figure it out. I really wanted to be certain. I knew a lot of people who went on to med school or whatever school they wanted to go to, and they ended up being kind of locked in at that point. They were 2 3 years in, and they got in immediately, but they didn't really spend the time to shadow to like ensure that that's what they wanted to do for the rest of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And it honestly wasn't until like 2 years after I graduated college that I really started thinking I need to go out here and start figuring it out, like for sure.
Yeah.
I was just working random part-time jobs. So even within college, I didn't solidify that that's what I wanted to do. It was only until a couple years after where I started to really go branch out that I figured it out.
I see. Okay, so I mean, you ended up in dental school, so I'm sure you had to have a strong GPA. Excuse me, not GPA, DAT.
Yeah.
How did you go about studying for it, and how did you feel when you were going through the whole process?
Oh man, I try to block that out of my mind. That was a tough one.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
everyone said that.
Yeah, man, it's one of those things that we all have to go through. It's a crazy process. You kind of make it what you want, though, right? I mean, I know some people who are coming straight out of college, and a lot of that material is very fresh in their brain. For me, obviously, from the story I just told you, I didn't really figure out I wanted to go to dental school until a couple years after I graduated,
Right.
which I graduated college in 2015. And so I started studying for the DAT. Yeah, it was like 2020, basically, like right when peak COVID hit.
Oh wow.
Um, so I had a couple months to study for the DAT. I was dental assisting at the time, and obviously everything shut down. So I had a couple months to just do nothing. I was getting paid from the unemployment because of COVID. And so I had an income, and I was like, I'm just going to spend all this time studying. This is meant to be. But yeah, I spent probably three months straight. Kind of like as I see in your videos that you're doing now, you just do it, pretty much all day, every day.
Yeah.
But the materials that I used personally, it's pretty much the standard, right? I used the DAT Destroyer, the DAT math book.
Yeah.
The only difference between me though, with a lot of people, is a lot of people used DAT Bootcamp. I personally did not use DAT Bootcamp.
Did you use Booster?
I used the DAT Booster because they were kind of an upcoming company. The price difference really isn't that big of a deal, honestly.
Yeah.
To me, I think it was only like $100 difference or somewhere in that range.
Mhm.
But to me at that time, I was like super broke. I was like, no, let me just do this. I know they're reputable because they were PAT Booster. And so I was like, let me be the oddball out and go try this other program. And so I used the DAT Booster, but it was very like comparable to the boot camp.
Yeah.
And it really worked for me. So I mean, I didn't end up getting like the best DAT ever. I had an academic average of a 20. Some sections I had a 19, some sections I had a 22. But I think your academic average, your AA is what's most important.
Yeah.
I only took it one time. So I was super glad when I got my test results printed out that I didn't have to go in there and take it again. I knew getting a 20 was good enough for me, for the schools that I wanted to get into. But after that 3 months, man, you just got to grind for that 3 months. And once it's done, you're like, you just chill from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, like I look back at it, and I'm like, it was like a miserable time for me, honestly. But like, it's kind of like an initiation towards becoming a dentist, and everyone has to go through it. And like, once you take it, everyone just like, it's like you immediately relate with someone like, oh, you took your DAT. Everyone's like so caring and so compassionate because like they know like what you're going through. So yeah,
Right.
it's a unique thing. So what would be like your number one tip for the pre-dents who are about to take their DAT or they're studying for it?
Number one tip. Oh man, there's so many. I'm gonna combine it to like one or two or three because they're all so equivalent. But
any tips you have for that?
Yeah. Make a schedule. Have a schedule. Have a plan. I know Ari has that 10-week. I think it's like a 10-week plan. I think you use that, Nick.
Yeah.
Do something like that. It doesn't have to be exactly that, but have a plan. But try not to go in there blind. A good thing too is like take some practice tests. Like learn what you're good at and learn what you're bad at. And maybe try to spend some more time. If you spend times on something you're already good at, well, you're not really improving your score because you already know that stuff. But if you spend the time like grinding away at the stuff you don't know, you're gonna up your academic average because you're getting all of your lower scores up to where your other ones are. And then, yeah, honestly, if I was to say the biggest tip, grind, like do it, put in the work. Like, is there anything in life that does not work for? Like, you're always going to get out of life what you put into it. So like the harder you study and the more sacrifices you make, not going out on the weekends, just giving up certain things just for the couple months. And it's only a couple months. I promise you will get out of it what you put into it. You have to put the time in to get the score you want.
I can attest to that. That's very well said. So did you show any interest in UNLV beforehand, either by reaching out to dental students or any of their faculty?
Honestly, no, not really.
Okay.
It's kind of a weird story. So I'm like from the South. I'm from like Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Louisiana area, but I was born here in Vegas. So I moved away when I was a baby. So that it kind of brought me to like applying to UNLV through that way, along with some other things I could talk about later. But I did not go to like any pre-dental events. I was never pre-dental while I was in undergrad. Really, the only way I learned about UNLV was researching the school. And then there was a D4 student. It's Dr. Lee now because she graduated, but her name is Patty Lee, and she was actually on this channel with FutureDDS. with Dr. Friday and Dr. Brown, and going over, before they were doctors, let's say that,
Yeah.
going over the school. And I think we had 2 people that were UNLV, because y'all have them for every school. So
Mhm.
that was really the only way that I even learned about UNLV.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Yeah, that's what a plug for us. Yeah, everyone go watch those videos if you haven't already.
Definitely.
But if a Predent did want to get involved with UNLV,
Yeah.
are there any events for them or any programs they can get started with?
Yeah. So obviously we have the pre-dental club. So if you're here, obviously you're an undergraduate student at UNLV, or honestly, even if you go to UNR, which is University of Nevada, I think it's Nevada, Reno.
Mhm.
Kind of unfamiliar with the area still. Obviously, I'm not from here, but we have pre-dental events. So it kind of goes with any undergraduate school or dental school. You'll have pre-dental events, probably like sim lab, workshop, like weekends or workshop days, impression days, is what we call them.
Mhm.
But one of the things that I personally assist with is, and this is students, I think it's all over Nevada. I don't know if it extends outside Nevada. I think we do have some Cali students as well at like you said, UC Davis,
Oh,
um,
cool.
and other schools in Cali. But I think that so we do what we call like a pre-dental mentor program. It was just started by a club last year, and what we do is they basically will match, first year dental students all the way. So D1 through D4 students will match them up with pre-dental students. And it's like a mentor mentee program where basically we take the mentees under our wing. And then as mentors, we basically just kind of like help them out along the way. Like they need help with DAT stuff, if they need help with application process stuff, whatever they need. If they just need somebody to talk to, they're having a bad weekend, they're not feeling like super optimistic about getting in, we're here to help. So that's one thing for sure that I wish I personally would have had. Because I kind of had to go self-search for a lot of like tips and tricks on like being in school, getting into school. But we kind of try to provide that in like a one-stop shop for those guys.
That's very cool. Yeah, because I mean the information is out there, it's just kind of like accessing it is pretty difficult, but like the fact
Right.
that UNLV does that is really awesome.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about your interview process? Like I'm
Yeah.
sure that was a time when interviews were online, right?
Ours was super weird. So yeah, it was still like kind of peak COVID because you apply a year in advance.
Right.
Ours for UNLV, we didn't have an in-person interview. Um, I had multiple interviews. I only went to like 2 or 3 of them. I should say went to. I went to on Zoom.
Right.
But from all 3 of them, only 2 out of the 3 were actually like how we're doing now, where it's through Zoom. So 2 of
Oh,
them were kind of like through Zoom. One of them, which was UNLV's, actually was like it wasn't a real interview. So how it went down was that they basically gave us 5 pre-recorded questions. We didn't get the questions ahead of time. We were just told to like show up, you click start, record your answer like face to face, but you're not talking to anybody, right? You just talk to
oh,
the camera,
right.
and it asked you, I don't even really remember what the questions were. Like some were like ethical, some were like why UNLV, why dentistry. They were kind of your traditional questions that they would ask. But after doing that, I expected that like it was a weeding out process. Like from there, they would do like the traditional interview, but
Mm-hmm.
they never did. I literally
Wow.
just got my acceptance letter from UNLV on the very first day, which is like traditionally it's December 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, like they're accepting me without even like doing a traditional interview. I was like, they must really like me.
Yeah.
But then I got in here to school and everybody was like, oh yeah, I'm the same. Like we
Oh,
didn't have a
wow.
traditional interview.
So do they do any of that like orientation that most interviews have like before
No,
the one-on-ones? No.
no,
Wow.
we weren't allowed to really. I mean, you could drive by the school, but like you weren't allowed to come in the school. You weren't allowed to tour the school, um, which was kind of like it's kind of weird for someone who's like really set on like I have all these options, and my options are going to be like my decision's going to be made based on like I want to see the facilities, I want to see where I lecture, I want to see the sim lab. You really weren't like allowed to do that, to be honest. For me, I personally didn't care because I knew all the factors outside of just like how are the facilities looking. It was really everything else outside of that that I cared about, such
Mm-hmm.
as like UNLV has a really, really strong clinical program. That's why most of the students come there because we start working on patients literally when we start our second year, we're starting to do working on patients. I had a D2 student just the other day tell me that he already did an occlusal resin filling
Wow,
on a patient.
awesome.
Um, and a lot of students have 2 years of schoolwork, didactic work, before they even get to the third year. So um, just things like that, and seeing the interviews, like you said, that Pat and Dr. Lee did,
Mhm.
and that the other students did from UNLV, just learning all of that, I was set on it. And I already knew that like UNLV was the one.
So can you talk about some other factors that got you interested in the school then, like maybe more specific details,
Yeah.
in addition to the clinical, hands-on experience?
So one, like I said, I'm kind of from Vegas. I just kind of thought it was a cool story to be like, wow, like what are the chances that like you just kind of go where life takes you and dentistry brings you all the way back to Las Vegas where you were born at.
Full circle. Yeah.
It's crazy how it works out. I just thought that was the coolest story. I was like, and my life has worked out a lot like this, where like random things, I'm not even going to go into them, but like things are just really meant to be. Like it is kind of cliche, but things are meant to be
Mhm.
like how they happen. So I was like, this is a good sign. It's worked out for me so far else. Let me just do this. The clinical aspect, honestly, was probably number one. If I was to give you like my number one, it's the clinical aspect.
Okay.
I worked as a dental assistant for 3 years, and I feel like having done that, I truly understand how important getting the hands-on skills. The earlier you can start getting it in the clinic, the better of a clinical dentist you're going to be.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was kind of like the main thing. Some other things about UNLV, um, we're not pass fail, so that's something that some students really want and some students really don't want. It has pros and it also has cons. Um, some of our classes are pass fail, but most of them are graded.
Okay.
Um, if you care about specializing, I'm not going to say it's worse, in my opinion, to be pass fail, but they don't really judge you. They don't have an even playing field to judge you based upon the schools that are graded,
Right.
because it's honestly not that hard to get a passing grade, and it's literally a C and up.
Okay.
It's not that hard. So like, um, if you want to specialize, schools are able to like judge you based upon your grades a lot easier and on an even playing field with everybody else.
Mhm.
We had a lot of great, like reputable professors here. We do a lot of research here at UNLV too. I don't personally don't want to go into research, but I did research when I was in college, and I really liked it. And coming from a school that does a lot of research and are known for research, you also have a higher likelihood of getting into specialty programs, having done research, and coming from a great research-based school.
Mhm.
So I would probably say those are the main couple things that like I really based like my opinion on. But there's so many other things I could keep going on and on and on.
I mean, that's awesome. I mean, like, even if you don't want to do research, it's always nice to have the option in case you want to do
Right,
it a little bit later on, right? So, I mean, I
right,
totally resonate with that. So you mentioned to me earlier that you received the NHSC scholarship, right?
right.
Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the NHSC, it stands for the National Health Service Corps. So it is very similar to, I think a lot more students know about the HPSP, um,
Yeah.
or I think there's an HCSC. There's another one that's like the HPSP one as well. There's two
Right.
military ones, and each branch has like two. The NHSC, which is what I have, it's not military, but it's very similar to that. So how the NHSC works is that um, it's only granted to 10% of students that are incoming. They have it for dental, nursing, med. Um, so you can only apply for it if you have a letter of acceptance to one of those schools. And then of those applicants, they pick 10% of the people. Um, and how your obligation to the NHSC works is that it's really meant to work in primary care. So you'd be a general dentist, at least in the time that you're serving for them. Um, there's one specialty, which is pediatric dentistry. They do let you do a specialty in that. They do let you do a GPR or an AEGD, which are like 1 year residencies. They're not specialties, but they're more like residencies if you don't feel comfortable going into the dental field immediately and working on people.
Right.
Um, so they do let you do GPR, AEGD, and pediatric dentistry. Other than that, the sole purpose of of the program itself is to get general dentists into areas of the underserved population, rural communities, places that don't have a lot of dentists, people that have to drive 2-3 hours to a dentist. So they're really placing you in areas like that. How it works in more detail is that they basically rank all of these areas by scores. They call it a HPSA score, HPSA. It's a health professional shortage area. And how that works is that I think it's the lower the score, the better, but they always set like a standard, let's just say 14. And then you have to, if you're part of the scholarship program, you have to be at that level or below, indicating there's more of an area of need the lower that you go.
I see.
So they also have a branch, which is called, it's not the scholarship program, but you can have a higher score, less areas of need, but that is like the loan repayment program. Okay. So it's not the scholarship program. And the difference between the two, the loan repayment program is you might get, I don't know, just ballpark 30 to 40K a year. On average per year. So you make your salary, but they also give you 30, 40K a year to like pay off your student loans. And usually it has to go to your student loans. Okay. The way the scholarship program works is very similar to the HPSP, which is basically like a 4-year ride. You can decide to do a 2-year, 3-year, or 4-year, but it's literally a 1-for-1 trade-off. Right. I think they also offer a 1-year, but the minimum you have to give them back is 2 years. So most of the time students they'll do a 2-for-2, 3-for-3, or a 4-for-4. And so basically they pay for all of your education, all tuition, any fees that are incurred while in school. And they also give you a living stipend, which I think this year, each month you get about $1,400.
Amazing.
Wow. So for me personally, I understand the program might not be for everybody. Some people don't want to be limited based upon like specializing after school. Yeah. Even me personally, I don't know if I want to specialize. I'm just going to do as great as I can in school with the hopes that after I serve my time back to the NHSC, that my grades and everything will have been suitable to specialize. But for me, the program was great. What better way to go to dental school without having to worry about all the student loans, without truly having to worry about like trying to be a gunner and having the best grades possible to ensure that you can specialize. All of that, like the weight of the world, honestly, just is kind of like off my shoulders. And I feel like because of that, I feel like I'm doing really well in school. Like even with the couple exams that we've had so far, I'm doing really well. I am studying super hard, but I just feel like way less stressed out than how I felt before I got the scholarship. When I knew, at least here at UNLV, it's over 4 years. And after interest, you end up paying back at least about $450,000 because I'm out of state. So,
wow, that's a sweet deal. So what's the application process like for that? Like, when do you apply, and like, what are some things that you need to fill out?
Yeah. So I think it opens about May, because it's traditionally like by the time all of the dental students or like med or nursing have gotten their application like approved, and you've actually got a letter of acceptance to a school. So you have to apply with that letter of acceptance. You have to like fill out like an application. It's not as detailed as the AdSAS application is. It's definitely not like that one that takes you like over a month or two to like, at least for me, it took me that long. I had to gather everything, but
that takes a while.
Yeah, I mean, this one maybe took me a couple weeks, but honestly, you submit your undergraduate grades unless you're already in dental school, because then you'll be submitting your previous year. Like if you're second year, you'll submit your first year of dental school's grades. But they want your GPA. And other than the application, you have to write 3 letters of, like 3 essay letters. So that was kind of like really like the longest part of it. You do have 3 recommendation letters to be submitted as well, which traditionally would just be submitted by the people who submitted it for you for dental school. But they are written a little bit differently because they ask them to write, obviously you're applying to an application that's meant for like people who want to go serve in underserved areas. And so they're asking a lot of questions in the essays as well as to your recommendation letter writers of like, why do you want to be in an underserved area serving in this like manner? So you really do have to spend a good amount of time like with self-reflection. I'm not saying that you have to be super, super gung-ho about like, oh, I always wanted to like serve in underserved areas, but it does need to really truly be a part of you. It can't just be, oh, I want school paid for, so I'm going to do this. You really have to truly think about the commitment that you're taking on, because you are going to spend 2, 3, 4 years after school not being able to specialize, other than what we talked about,
Right.
and go spend that time maybe in somewhere in the middle of nowhere, where that is your role, that is what you signed up for.
So
So
sorry,
yeah,
is it like a random assignment, or can you choose what city you end up in?
it's a great question. You get to choose, so that really like if I wasn't able to choose, I might have been a little bit more standoffish.
Mhm.
But because you are able to choose, they basically make this really long list of like areas and rate them all by scores, and you can go filter like if you want to live in like the Northeast or the Southeast or the West, wherever you want to live, you can kind of filter it and kind of go choose by there.
Okay.
You also have to go interview, as far as I know. It's not You're not guaranteed a position. You have to still go like fill out like a job application and like apply and go interview. A lot of the sites are at like community health centers.
Mm,
I think they call them like FQHCs, like federally qualified health centers.
mhm.
There are some private practices that take Medicaid. I think that is a stipulation that they have to take Medicaid.
Mhm.
Um, but it's not always in a community health center, but traditionally that's like where you'll be serving as a general dentist. Um, some A lot of times too, I've heard that they'll be in prisons, like
Okay.
prisons or jails that need dentists. But that's kind of up to you. You really get to decide. Like if you really don't want to do one versus the other, you can choose to not go do that.
Yeah.
So they don't just force you to go somewhere where they want you to go.
That's awesome to have the option, really. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm kind of interested in it too now. So
yeah, it's a good deal.
anyway, so I want to move on to the next question, which is how has the transition been from, being a pre-dent to, finally being in dental school? How have those first few weeks been for you?
Yeah, it's definitely been a challenge. So for me, obviously, I've been out of school for a while. Um, Having to have studied for the DAT, I kind of felt like I was back in like undergrad in a way. Like I was reviewing all the material that I learned from undergrad, but truly like being like a non-traditional like applicant to dental school, because I'm 28 now. I turned 28 in July. So I've been out of school since 2015. So for me, coming in here and having this course load is like it's pretty tough, to be honest. But coming into school, I pretty much braced myself for that. I told myself like this is going to be the hardest thing you're ever going to do. Like I expected the worst, and it hasn't been like that bad, honestly. It
Great.
it is a lot of work. It truly is. The volume that people talk about is very true. The complexity of the course material is very true.
Mhm.
Um, but it also is because I'm not coming out straight out of college. It's been a while since I've taken these courses. But everybody in your class is super different as well. Like some people took immunology, some people took cell biology, some people didn't take those, but maybe they took microbiology
Anatomy or something.
or
Right.
anatomy.
Yeah.
And so you can easily see amongst your student body in your class, like some people are really good in one area, but they're not in the other. And then the ones that other people aren't, they will be. So, and it's really just based upon what courses did you take, how like in depth did they go.
Mhm.
But dental school really starts diving into all the topics you learned in undergrad in a lot more detail. We're getting down to like the molecular level, a lot of acronyms, a lot of names. It is very hard. It does require a lot of studying, but so far I feel like it is definitely manageable. Like I live in Vegas. We went to the club one of the weekends right after our first test. Like I watch football on the weekends. I work out every day.
Yeah.
It is what you make it, honestly. Like you can make time and still have like a great balanced life in school.
Yeah.
Um, but if you want to slave yourself to the computer or to the library and like never come out of your room and like hate yourself and be super miserable, you can do that if that's what you want. But I'm doing really well in school right now, and like I'm studying hard, but I have a great like school life balance. It's very much achievable.
I feel like you're a great example of how, like, if you're passionate about something, you're gonna get it done. So, like, I mean, you're able to
Right.
fit in everything and make time for it. So, more power to you. Um,
Exactly.
I was gonna ask, since UNLV is graded in some classes, how is the
Mhm.
environment there? Is everyone like, is it kind of like a collaborative environment, or do people maybe like, are they more independent?
This is something I should have added to, like, when you asked me like why UNLV, and
Mhm.
I did kind of know this coming in, but you really don't feel it until you're like in school. But
Mhm.
UNLV is so collaborative. Um, Even from like the second years are always helping us. The third years are always helping the second years. The fourth are helping the third. Because the ones who have been through it are traditionally going to help the ones that were like about to go through it because it's fresh in their mind and like they interact the most. But like our second year students are so helpful. They just went through everything and yeah, maybe it wasn't COVID, but they're truly passionate about like ensuring that like we succeed, which I thought was kind of weird because like if I just imagine if I was them, like I'd be worrying about myself, and maybe that's a selfish aspect, but like our second year students are super, super like into like making sure that we're taken care of. And when I asked one of them, which was their student president, I asked him like how did this get started? Like why are y'all so into like helping us? And he told me it was because they didn't necessarily have that during their first year because they were like a COVID year. So they didn't get to interact with the second years when they were first years. And
Mhm.
so they were like, as a class, we kind of agreed that we really wanted to like do that for y'all because we never got it, kind of a thing, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but even if you go look back at like Patty's video, like I was telling you, she talks about it a lot. Like just the school in general, there in dental school, there will always be what we call gunners, people who are just out for themselves. They'll do anything to like not help you. So maybe, and I hate to say it, but maybe you do worse so
Mhm.
that they look better. But I haven't had even a sense of that or a taste of that since I've been here.
Awesome.
Obviously, it's earlier on in my school career for sure, but everybody helps everybody. We have so many study groups. If you don't understand a topic, we have a Discord with our whole entire class. All of the classes broken down. You can go in there and ask a question, or if you need a resource like from school while you're home and you can't access it because you're off campus, someone will go in there and like photo it, send it to you.
Awesome.
Everybody is always helping each other. And when you get into dental school or really any school that requires this much volume and work, you truly realize how like you need that in school. Like you need someone to have your back. Um, as like independent as I feel like I am, and like I don't really participate in study groups. I'm kind of more like a solo dolo kind of dude. Like
Mhm.
I still need like that support. Like
Right.
I need to have that like feeling where like even with our professors, we're like they give you the feeling where like if you need to go into their office during their office hours and have them like break some material down to you, they're always going to do it. Like none of our professors are rude. They really give us the sense where like they want us to succeed as well. So
Awesome.
like that's just one of those things that takes all that like weight off your shoulders when you like you get the vibe where like the students I'm around and all of my professors like want me to do good. We're all like in this struggle together.
Mhm.
And I never expected that coming in.
That's amazing. And so what's the average day like for you? Like what kind of courses are you taking right now? How much are you in sim lab? What's it like?
Yeah. So we have like two different types of like sim labs. One's like dental anatomy and occlusion. The other one's more like a general dentistry clinic.
Okay.
But the one on Tuesdays is more of like we're in there for about 4 hours on Tuesday and then about 4 hours on Thursday.
Okay.
So they're both about like 3 or 4 hours. But one of them's where we like wax teeth, things like that. The
Yeah.
other one is more of like doing impressions and things like that.
Okay.
So total per week, we're in there about 8 hours. It's not really that time, at least in UNLV's curriculum, where we're in there a lot. We get in there a lot when the summer comes up for our
Okay.
first year, because UNLV you go to school like 24/7. You don't really get like big breaks. Christmas break you get a couple weeks, but like it's broken up into like 3 different semesters. So like fall, spring, and summer. And so during the summer, we really start hitting clinic heavy instead of like having like 8 to 9 to 10 different like didactic courses. We have like a lot of like sim lab based stuff during the summer.
Okay.
But yeah, we're in, like I said, 8 hours of sim, and then um, Mondays are like, yeah, like 10 to 2. So
Okay.
that's a pretty short day, but every other day other than that is pretty much like 9 to 4,
Oh, wow.
8 to 4.
Okay.
Um, so some days are better than others, but we get an hour for lunch, usually like right in the smack dab middle of everything, 12 to 1.
Okay.
But we're taking, I think, 29 credit hours. 29. Yeah, it's crazy.
Whoa.
I'm so used to it now that like I think in college, like the most undergraduate like credit hours I ever took during a semester was I think 17. I don't think I ever took 18. I
And
think
that's a
17
lot. That's a
was the most.
lot too.
And it felt like so much. And then like now I'm already like a little over a month into school, and 29, honestly, like you're used to it. Like it is a lot. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to say it's easy, but like it's once you get in here and you have no choice but to like manage it,
Yeah.
you it becomes second nature.
Wow. I should really start appreciating all the time I have on my hands now, huh?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I was gonna ask, so it seems like, after like this whole like COVID stuff that now things are a little bit back like to normal, and like you're able
Yeah.
to get to know your classmates, able to like go in for sim lab and maybe spend as much time as you need, and
Hmm.
speak to professors. So is that true, or is it still kind of like limited or restricted?
Yeah, we're pretty much like back to normal schooling. Like
Awesome.
we have to wear masks at the school like 24/7.
Hmm.
Um, we if you don't wear your mask, the dean will send out, letters saying like, hey guys, like you're gonna start getting in trouble. Like professors say you aren't wearing the masks in class. Like they are really on top of us, not like creating some type of super spreader event where like students can't come into class or lecture or quizzes or exams. Um, but I think ever since they like UNLV really prides themselves on like making sure nobody gets COVID. I think during peak of COVID, from the time it began all the way to now, they haven't had a single like incident where like people have had to like take off class. Like they
Okay.
haven't had a big group of like students that couldn't come in.
Okay.
So um, they're super like diligent on us doing that. But other than that, yeah, like professors are always available. I haven't had any professors get COVID or like be missing. Um, as far as like what they've told us is like everything is back to like how it was before COVID ever started,
Oh,
minus
awesome.
wearing masks in lecture.
Oh, fantastic. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So my last question for you is, if you could go back to when you were a pre-dent and give yourself some advice, what would you say?
Whew, the golden question, man.
Yeah.
Oh, so I would say it maybe relates back to like you were asking me like what kind of courses are we taking now. I think I would definitely try to take more courses than I took, take more credit hours,
Hmm.
or even if I'm not taking more credit hours, I would cut out some of like the classes I didn't really need and
Hmm.
replace them with classes that would have benefited me. Because like now we're taking like microbiology and cell immunology, which is a lot of cell biology. I
Right.
never took cell biology. Um, I would have took a human anatomy course, which I really didn't have to take a human anatomy course because mine was animal science.
Yeah.
Um, I would try to take obviously some of our dental related courses you can't really take, like treatment planning and like the sim lab stuff. Um, we have a class called human structure and function, which is like you can't really study for that either.
Right.
But I would have went and taken a lot more courses relating to like the biology side of stuff. Physics, don't really use it. The chemistry, you have to take it to get in, but we don't really use it. But I would definitely take like microbiology, cell biology, immunology, anatomy.
Yeah.
Like there's a second course you can take. Definitely take that because we get really in depth. Um, but definitely like learn as much as you can to prepare yourself the best you can for coming in. Um, I also would tell myself to just like relax, like it's as hard as it is. I know everybody wants to get into dental school and you
Hmm.
really want to be here. If you put in the effort and you grind and like you work for it, like you're gonna get in. Like it's just a matter of time. Like I was lucky enough to get in my first application. We have people in my class that it's their second time, third time, like trying. You just never know, you know, it truly does only take one school to accept you, and then you're in,
Yeah.
you know, unless you just really don't want to go anywhere. But like, you know, you're going to get the same great education from anywhere, honestly.
Yeah.
uh, just go, because, you know, no matter where you graduate from or anything like that, you're going to be a dentist, you're going to get a great education. And then from there, you kind of decide who you want to be. Um, but I would just tell myself to relax, because I remember studying for the DAT. I remember how bad I wanted to get in. I just remember being so stressed out and sleepless nights, and just really, you know, wondering like, what would I do if I didn't get in? Like, what am I going to do for a whole nother year? Um, and if looking back, if I could have just relaxed a little bit more, like I probably would live longer. I might have lost a couple years off my life for all the like stress I put myself through.
Yeah.
So those are the main things that really hit me. And then the last thing, I'm glad I remembered this. Me personally, I can't hype up assisting enough. I was a dental assistant for 2 or 3 years, and I'm not saying you won't be okay if you don't assist, but I really have like, what do they call it? Like, reap the fruits of your labor, I guess they should
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Like, being in clinic and knowing all the terminology that I've learned about dental anatomy, the materials, the procedures, you know, just all these things you have to learn: mesial, distal, lingual, buccal.
Right.
There's just so many terms that we use, and I can only imagine having to learn all of that on top of the classes that we're having to do didactically. And I think probably that's why, and another reason I'm not as stressed out, is because I knew all this stuff coming in. And so I was able to focus more on the things I didn't know. Like I was saying, is beneficial for the DAT, because I didn't have to worry about learning all this stuff. I already knew so much coming in.
Yeah.
My hand skills aren't really the best, but you know, I was used to working with all these instruments. I know what teeth should look like. I
Right.
know what all of the teeth are numbered. I know what they're named. I know how many roots they have, things like that. And you're going to have to know all of that very quickly right when you get in here. So the more I think you can assist and learn from assisting and learn about dentistry as a whole, not only will it solidify and ensure that this is what you want to do for the rest of your life, because it's a very expensive and very long commitment that you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
But it will really prepare you to be less stressed out in school.
Yeah. And
So,
not to mention, like, what you gain that perspective. So like when you're a dentist, you can like maybe sympathize a little bit more with your assistant,
man,
like kind of know what struggles they're going through. Cause I know like
yeah,
when there's a dentist who hasn't been a dental assistant, you can kind of
yeah,
tell, like, right? So
yeah,
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 I agree with you. I think that's really well said. So
yeah, man.
Logan, thank you so much for your time and for all these words of wisdom. I know I learned a lot from you, and I'm sure our audience did as well. If
Yes,
any of
sir.
if any of the followers have additional questions for you, is it cool they can reach
Yeah.
out either through, Instagram or email?
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Yeah. The IG is it's Lo.Duncan. So it's gonna be Lo.Duncan. I'm pretty sure that's it. If not, just type in Logan Duncan. Like, you'll find me. It'll say UNLV Student Dental Medicine Class 2025.
Right.
And then my email, if you just want to email me as well, my school email is going to be DUNCA. Gosh, I always forget it.
Look,
Duncan.
Logan, it's okay. As long as it's okay that they can reach out to you through those
Yes.
platforms, we can leave it in the description of the video.
Yeah,
So it's
we'll
fine.
throw it in the description, but I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure it's
Yeah.
DUNCAD3@unlv.nevada.edu.
Yeah.
But
Awesome.
we'll put it in the description to make sure.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Awesome. All right.
feel free to hit me up if you have a question about UNLV, or like you just need some advice.
Yeah, that's very kind of you. I'm sure they're going to appreciate that. Logan, again, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you guys, man.
Everyone at home, if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe button. And if you want to be notified when we upload new content, hit the notification bell. If you have any questions for us at FutureDDS, you can always DM us on Instagram @_FutureDDS, and we'll try to reply as soon as possible. And we'll see you all in the next video. Take care.